morning, everybody. If you're joining us now, how is everybody this morning?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Chicken. Very happy to see you up.
Yeah, no, I was literally training myself all week, waking up at 9 o'clock so I would be ready.
Oh my God, I'm so proud of you. When I woke up, I was like a little on the late side than what I wanted to wake up. And I was like, I don't have her number. I don't know how I can nudge her and just be like, good morning, just checking you're awake. Also wanted to make it seem like fun and not like I'm harassing you, like, get up, it's time to talk.
I would have just joined in like, yeah, hi guys, I'm here.
How you doing?
That's what I thought you were going to be doing, Omma. I thought you were going to be in your bed like, morning, yep. 1 minute. Jack, Ashara, how are you both?
We're good.
Great,
well,
thanks.
I don't know. I can't speak for Jack. I'm good.
Yeah, we're both doing well, thanks. We're both doing well.
Oh, I love that. Like, collectively, we're absolutely great.
We're here. We're amazing.
I'm just going to mute everyone else. It seems a bit rude to do that, but just so I can get you guys on screen and just so you're aware, but I think you are, but this is being recorded. You can see because it says recording at the top left, and it's going to be uploaded to YouTube. I'm going to say later on today, even though I actually still haven't uploaded the last one. That's on me because I'm a lazy rat, but it will be uploaded so that people who missed it or people who are in different time zones can look back and watch it. So it's 10:02. I'm going to kick off with just a little chat and a little intro. Does anyone have an order of preference of who wants to speak first after me? Raise your hand, volunteer yourself. Jack, oh, straight in, like, yeah, me, casual, I'll do it next. Cool, we'll go with Jack and then Ashara.
When you
fight it out.
When you suggested 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning, I thought I'm always up early and I'm always up for it. But I've woken up this morning, God, 10 a.m. feels a little bit early. Yeah.
Do you know, it's so true. When I first literally started doing these, I was like, what's like a nice normal time? Because you don't want it to be too late because no one will join in the middle of the day, blah blah. And I was like, 10 a.m. is like a nice time. Like everyone's up, everyone feels good by 10 a.m. And honestly, when we did the first one, I was like, this is so early. It's so horrible. Why am I doing
That's how I
10?
felt this morning. I felt like it was early.
It's
You
so
guys
true.
still took the time to get ready. I literally just put a bit of blusher on because I was like, I just don't have the time.
So I was like, you look tired. You need to put some makeup on, girl.
Oh my God, so good. Well, I really appreciate all of you, all like three of you guys joining to chat and share your experiences so early in the morning, and then also for everyone who has joined already, which is fantastic. And I'm sure there'll be other people diving in, so that's fantastic. I'm just going to mute everyone who's not you guys. Apologies if I ask you to mute. I'm not being rude. Right, so welcome. It's Sunday. It's July. It's almost August. Disgusting. So I thought I'd kick off before we get into our amazing panel chats. First of all, just some house rules. If you're not speaking, put yourself on mute. Speakers, that doesn't include you. You're allowed to be on because we want your reactions. But just anyone else, just because it interrupts the feed, that would be amazing. Second of all, there's a little, I'm sure everyone has used Zoom, there's a little chat box somewhere at the bottom. If you have any questions at all for anyone, throw them in there throughout the chat, and at the end hopefully we'll have enough time to go through a little Q&A. I've got a Q&A up on my Instagram at the moment as well, so if any questions come through from there, we can do a nice little panel discussion at the end, so that will be super fun. But I wanted to quickly kick off. This is, I don't know why I'm promoting everyone else, but my amazing friend has just started a podcast called The Poodcast. And if you haven't listened to it, I would recommend you go check it out. It's very funny. It's to do with bowel and bladder conditions, so very up our street. So she's just started that. And I was one of her guests last week. And we were chatting, and there's something that we were chatting about that made me think that this isn't spoken about necessarily too much on people's pages, but it's something we've all definitely gone through and something I think we all relate to. And that is the stool sample experience that we've all had. And I remember like my first ever one, and I'm sure we've done many. I had to do another one last week, which is why it's very fresh in my mind. But I remember doing my first one and like, being a little bit perplexed by like the size of the tube, the tiny blue scoop that's in it, and just thinking like, I don't know if this is like a little, like a kids at the beach set, you know, like a little bucket in space, or like if I'm meant to use it in a toilet, like that whole process anyway is bizarre. But can we just like take a second to acknowledge the fact that you then, not only is the tube clear, fine, whatever, do what you gotta do, but then the specimen, and it says specimen on it, like pathology specimen, the bag you have to put it in is also clear, and no nurse or GP or pathologist will accept it unless it's in that clear bag. I remember the first time I did one, obviously I was like a little bit embarrassed. It's not like, you know, it's like, here's my shit, just enjoy when you're waiting with people. I put it in like, you know, a brown envelope and kind of try to be really discreet, passing it over the counter like, you know what that is, that's the goods, you can take that. And then literally actively being like, can you please remove it yourself? Like, can you take it out the brown thing so that we can look at it? And just feeling like mortified in this GP surgery waiting room. It was like very busy. This is years ago, so pre-lockdown, when everyone would just happily sit for hours in a waiting room, and just like feeling this sense of weird shame and embarrassment. Obviously, the more you do, the more used to it you get. Some people are more discreet than others, but I don't know if anyone else has any kind of like weird stories around it. But I remember this one time, and this came to my head last week, and I can't remember, I forgot about it, but I'd been asked to do a stool sample for my hospital. I was like, yeah, fine, okay. I'd done a couple by this point. I knew the protocol. And I'd done the stool sample, and I was like, right, I'll pop it in my bag with the intent to go to the hospital that afternoon, something like that. For some reason, I never made it to the hospital. I think I was like busy with work. So a day, like it got to the end of the day and I was like, oh God, still got this stool sample in my bag, but you know, it's fine. I'll go tomorrow. Like, I'm sure that'll be fine. Next day passed, didn't have the opportunity. Next day passed, didn't have the opportunity. And it got to the end of the week and I was like, I still very much have my poo in my bag. And like, I'm not really sure what to do with this. Anyway, the more time went on, the less bothered I seemed to be about carrying a stool sample around in my bag. So it just went on, and like so much time had passed. I think by now it was maybe like 3 weeks had passed with it still in my bag. And I was thinking, I don't know, does it go off? Does it go moldy? I didn't want to look at it because it was like when my Crohn's was quite bad. So it was not an aesthetically pleasing stool sample, that's all I'm going to say. And I just remember thinking like this weird scenario and not really knowing who to ask or what to do with it, of thinking, okay, I think it's too late for it to now be analysed because it's probably off in any sense of the word, it's probably off. But now what do I do with it? Because I was living at my now ex-boyfriend's parents' house at the time, and I was working in a job that was like a very in-betweeny job at like this plumbing company, very weird time in my life. And so I was like, okay, well, I've got two scenarios. I either throw it in the bin of the place I'm living with my boyfriend's parents, knowing that his mum takes out the bins, not me. You know, what if she dropped something? What if she was looking for something? There it is, just like a tube of my poo in her bin. So I was like, I can't do that. But then like, do I take it at work where there's cleaners and there's caretakers? And anyway, I realized literally last week, I still have no idea what I did with that stool sample because I didn't actively chuck it in a bin. So the bag, at some point I must have either given the bag to someone, thrown it away, left it at someone's house. I don't know. But until this day, I have no idea what that stool sample is. So I thought I'd just kick off that sharing, cellular cathartic therapy session of me realizing there is probably a tube of my poo like in someone's house, in someone's bag somewhere. And I've just no idea. So on that
Behind
note,
someone's sofa somewhere.
Oh my God, imagine, honestly, or like, you know, he had a dog. I think that's what I was worried about. You know, what if the dog went through my bag? You know, it smelled kind of weird. So they started playing with it, just the thoughts that.
And they've normally got your name on them as well. If you've written your name on it, you can't deny it. Don't know whose that is. It's literally got your name written on the side of it.
Exactly. And do you know what? I think now you said that, I think that is why I was so weird about throwing it in like a public bin, because it had like you know, it has your name, it has your NHS number, it has your birthday on it, like quite identifiable. And like, not that anyone would ever want to clone me, but there was a little piece of me that was like, I can't just throw this in a public bin because that is a lot of information about me, you know. Anyway, yeah, very weird sample times. So all I would say, my advice is, if you do a stool sample and you're not going to take it to the hospital that day, either A, freeze it. Don't know if you can do that, by the way. That's not medical advice. Or B, maybe just put it back down the toilet and wash it out. I don't know, but don't harbor it forever in a bag or throw it in a public bin because, I don't know, that's a very bizarre time of my life. Luckily, it was years ago. I'm obviously not over the trauma, so thank you for letting me vent and express myself. So let's kick in, and I won't take up any more time. It's now 10:10. Jack, we will pass the floor to you to kick off first.
Cheers, thanks. So, hi everyone. My name's Jack Hodges. I'm 26 and I'm from Devon, from a city called Exeter in Devon, down in the southwest England. I was diagnosed with UC over 20 years ago at the age of 5 in 1998. I don't know whether I can consider this my third stoma because I've had it repositioned, or whether I class it as my second, but I've had 2 stomas in a J pouch, which I'll tell you about. And most recently in March, I had Barbie butt surgery. So going back to diagnosis, being 5 years old, it was quite surprising. And it was just typical sort of symptoms, which I think most people go through when they first discover they have either Crohn's or colitis. So it's the stomach cramps, it was blood in my stool, and then kind of urgency, just really needed, when I needed to go, I really needed to go. So this was around about, 5 years old, and all throughout primary school, it was fine. And then I can remember in year 6, it's starting to get a lot worse. I probably only lived about 500 meters away from the school, but I had 1 or 2 accidents walking home from school. Stomach cramps were getting much worse. So towards the end of year 6, my mum ended up going into school, and I was actually allowed, it wasn't cool at the time, it was a small Siemens mobile phone. It was small, blue, it had a bright orange screen. It's obviously not top of the range nowadays, nonetheless cool at the time. But I was able to take my phone into primary school and put it into my teacher's desk, and then basically at the end of the day, take it out of her desk and carry it home in case I needed to call my mum to get her to pick me up. And that happened in such a short period of time. So I was, always on the playground playing football, always running around, always down the park playing football. But all of a sudden, in a short amount of time, it changed into that, where I basically needed constant access to toilets. And then starting year 7 at secondary school, so age 11, the symptoms just kept getting worse and worse. And I remember going to a hospital appointment and then kind of being a little bit passive about it. There's like, try these different medications. It definitely felt like I was way past the point of medication. But we tried it for 1 day and wasn't successful. So I went back the next day and I was losing quite a lot of blood. So it was almost constant diarrhea, constant blood coming out of my bum. And because I'm down in the southwest, it's not all farms and green fields and tractors and farming, but Torbay Hospital is quite small in the scheme of things, and they're not used to doing operations on young kids. So I got driven 180 miles away by ambulance to Birmingham Children's Hospital, where I had my first ileostomy. It didn't happen straight away. I had blood transfusions. They attempted a few different medications, but I reacted quite poorly. Had a few seizures and found out I'm allergic to cyclosporine, apparently. I'm unsure of that, but it happened at the time. So every time I go to an appointment now and they ask me if I'm allergic, I say, cyclosporine. They say, what happened? I say, I have seizures. And I look like the most dramatic person in the world, because it's not that strong of a drug, but it happens. I got my first ileostomy. Managed that well throughout secondary school, and then got a J pouch in 2018. So 5-6 years later. That was amazing. It was life-changing. At the time, I couldn't recommend it enough. It literally gave me a life of being symptom-free from IBD for 6 years. And then 2 years, it got pretty poor. So I was living abroad in Australia and was 18 months in, and all my friends, I was there with 6 mates. We were planning a trek to Everest Base Camp. At the time, my health just dropped so quickly. I ended up going to hospital for a few days in Australia, and then basically they said you're gonna have to go home, really, because I couldn't afford paying rent, being away from family, and I didn't want to struggle alongside friends who are obviously having an amazing time out there. So I ended up coming back and having stoma surgery, but I didn't have it for 2 years. I came back, tried a few medications. I managed to get into remission. And then 2 years later, I ended up just throwing in the towel and basically saying, I can't go on living like this, really. I'd convinced myself that I wanted to my determination to live without a bag had become stronger than my determination to actually be healthy and have a great quality of life. So I ended up throwing in the towel and saying, you know, I'm ready to get a stoma now. So that was back in 2018. So I got my stoma. Like I said, that's the biggest impact I've ever felt in life about anything from a medical perspective. Off the back of that decision to get it, it was 3 months later. I'd put on almost 20 kilograms. I'd moved in with mates in London. I'd been promoted at work, and it was honestly 3 months. If you'd seen me 3 months before and then what I was like 3 months later, it was a completely different person. I knew it. My friends knew it. My family knew it. It was
3
absolutely
months is
amazing.
really quick as well, so that's really great.
Yeah, it honestly, I looked like a different person, felt like a different person. It was amazing. It's different this time around because I had my stoma for 2 years, and then I basically had to go back and get Barbie butt surgery. It was more of a lifestyle choice, really. I wasn't in pain as such, but I was producing quite a lot of mucus, and that leaked during the night. And I've got a girlfriend and stuff like that. And I thought, I've gone through all these surgeries. I've had it for 20 years. Why am I still getting up I've got a bag. Why am I still getting up 3-4 times in the night to wet boxes, basically? And thinking, I need to just get this closed off completely, basically lock it up, throw away the key. I'm done with it. So I had Barbie butt surgery and also had a stoma repossession to my left-hand side. Yeah, sorry if I'm waffling on a bit. I don't want to go over time, but the key point I wanted to make today was about communication. I think I've done it 2 ways. Earlier on throughout secondary school, I was really private about it. I didn't want my parents knowing about it. I didn't want doctors knowing about it. I didn't want friends knowing about it. I didn't want family knowing about it. I basically didn't want anybody knowing that I had a stoma. And I had to live 5 years throughout secondary school, like almost constantly anxious and aware of my bag and how discreet it had to look. That's why I follow quite a few younger people on Instagram at the moment. I just find it so inspiring, and seeing how much easier it makes it for yourself just being open and transparent. Because I feel like I've done it 2 ways, and the second way is definitely best, but either being private about your ostomy, and then this time round in 2008 going back to have a stoma, I've been open about it. I've spoken about it lots. I definitely find that helps me so much, talking to other people about it. Like even this morning with you guys today, it's early, it's 10 a.m. on a Sunday, but I already feel at home and like I'm talking to mates. It's amazing. I've definitely got so much out of the community second time round. And just want to stress the importance of communicating, not just, I suppose, throughout school and stuff like that, but then also this time round with employment. It's just made it so much easier. And when I'd done some fundraising earlier in the year, I didn't know whether I should do it. I thought, is it a bit much speaking to work colleagues about IBD and stuff like that? Because even though I'm open to talk to people from the community, I don't, it's work. I don't want people to be thinking too much about that at work. But I sent an email around just basically saying I've had IBD for 20 years. I've had surgery and doing some fundraising. And then at least 4 people came and spoke to me that week saying either they've got IBD, they've got a close friend or family that has it. And it's just made it so much easier. And going through that process at secondary school, I can remember, I can't blame them. I can't blame people for not knowing because I didn't want anyone knowing. But it was sports day. It's obviously not the most important day of your life, but back then it was football, sports day, year 7. It did feel good. And we got to like knockout stages, and the teacher was refereeing, and we had to turn our jumpers inside out because everyone had the same jumpers on. And he looked at our team that I was on, and I was the captain of our team. He looked at us and said, "You guys need to turn your tops inside out." And there's so many spectators there. No one knew about my bag. And I was panicking. It became so stressful for me. I walked over to him. I said, "Oh, can you make my team had already turned their tops inside out?" And he went over to them. He said, "Yeah, what are you doing? Just take your top off and change your top around and get on with it." So it obviously clicked that he didn't know or hadn't remembered that I had a bag. Yeah. And everyone was looking at me. Everyone on the other team, people on my team were looking at me. Everyone spectating was looking at me. And basically didn't have a very constructive conversation, put it that way. Me and the teacher, I just felt so under pressure. I ended up, it's pretty out of character, but I ended up swearing quite a lot and walking off. But I suppose that just reiterates the importance of communication, because, this time I don't have to live with anything like that nowadays. But back then, doing it early on, it was just being closed, obviously being conscious of what people are thinking. Does my bag look like it's sticking out? And then also getting into situations like that, where it's just unbelievably stressful. You can go from being amazing, you're playing sports and it's going well, to literally 2 minutes later, swearing. I'm pretty sure I went to the car park and just cried. Because I thought I was going to get in big trouble as well. I thought I was going to get suspended for swearing at a teacher. But more important was the game. But
so stressful at that age. Like you're only like peer pressure and what people think means so much at such a young age, and then just being put on the spot like that, and then not even being able to explain it quickly to the teacher or privately, and everyone just looking. Oh my god! I was even Loïs.
And because my team had changed their tops, I was looking at my team. They'd done it no fuss. So even if I had the opportunity to speak to him, it would have just been so weird if he'd gone, "Oh, actually, I'll change my mind. Jack spoke to me. You guys change the tops back, and you guys now change the tops." It was just horrible, and it wouldn't have been worth it. But yeah, if I communicated my condition better back then things like that, I feel like a bit of a hypocrite. I can't really encourage younger people to be open about their bag because I wasn't, but having gone through both instances.
Because you've been through it and you did it in the opposite way, and you know how much it impacted you negatively, you can still encourage them because you've been there and you've had the opposite experience, whereas now you've learned from it. So if you know that if you had, but you're so young, 11 years old, like how much do we communicate our true feelings at that age, and how well do we even express ourselves or know ourselves? So if you had been able to do it at that age, I would have been like, wow, that's amazing.
It wouldn't have been, if I could, it wouldn't have been through social media, because social media wasn't really a thing then, especially not in year 7. Like it was cool enough taking a little Siemens blue phone to school with an orange screen, let alone logging into Facebook or Instagram and sharing the story. So
I love how clearly you remember that phone, like little Siemens phone, blue, orange screen, like as if it was like the best phone you've ever had. Like, remember that phone?
Remember everything about it. The games on there, the screensaver. I don't know. It became an essential, basically.
Oh, I love that. I think that's so brave, and I think kind of a little bit what Omma said. I think hindsight's such a wonderful thing, isn't it? Being like, oh, if I was to do that again, I maybe would have communicated. But hindsight is fantastic, and I feel like that's also a skill that we learn as like we get older and we get more like compassionate and more empathetic. Like kids, I had a pretty fine upbringing in school and stuff, but kids in year 6 and in primary school were not particularly friendly or understanding, and I think there's so much pressure. So for you to have had to harbor that, I guess, secret about yourself and something that you were not only dealing with but like actively struggling with must have been like so tough. I can't even imagine that. Like, the story about sports day absolutely breaks my heart so much. I like feel it swelling and be like, oh gosh, poor Jack, like you poor thing. That sounds shit, basically. That's how I'm gonna say it.
Yeah, it's a good word to describe it.
Yeah. No, I think that was amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I think that was really, really good. And there's going to be loads of questions. I think loads have come in already on my Instagram. I know that Bethany's already asked a question here. We'll come back to questions at the end, because I know I definitely have one for you as well for the end. So thank you, Jack. Sure. Ashara, do you fancy going next?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Go for it.
Okay, so hi guys, my name is Ashara Keyes. I run the Awkward Awakened Awareness _IBD page. It wasn't my name because I'm just a bit quirky and it's different from my personal account. So I only really started coming out about my condition in 2018 when I made this account. So I made the account to raise awareness for IBD because I think I was kind of in remission, but I was in a good place. So I felt like now I'm in this good place, I need to help and, uplift other people and show other people, because I had it from quite young. So I was diagnosed at 15 years old. So I was still in high school but I'd had symptoms from about 13 years old, and I'd had a misdiagnosis of just IBS, and I'd had surgery on my hemorrhoids, because I had hemorrhoids from like 13 or 14.
Love it, like, great.
yeah, so I had a surgery on that, so that's where they thought the bleeding was coming from. So they had said, okay, we're going to band up the hemorrhoids, whatever. And then after that, I still had symptoms. There was one particular month where I lost like over a stone in a month, and then I was just vomiting out everything I was eating. I was having diarrhea. I wouldn't eat. Like, I was really skinny. I couldn't go to school or do anything. So that's when my mum took me back to the GPs, and then they made the referral to the gastro. And then once the gastro did the, you know, the poo sample that you're talking about, they called the doctor straight away, and they was like, you need to get this girl in now. The inflammation is very, very high. So on that same day, we had to go up to the hospital. That's when I had an endoscopy and colonoscopy. And can I just say, I'd never felt such feelings in my life. I was only 15 years old. Nothing had gone up my bum before. Not that anything's gone up my bum now, but nothing has gone up my bum before. And then my throat after, I'm just like, nothing had gone down either ends before. Do you know what I mean? So it was just like, I didn't know the feeling of feeling sore in them places. Do you know what I mean?
Oh my God, I'm crying.
Like, I'm talking, you know, you're all groggy when you wake up. I took it to the person, like, I just like, my bum. He's like, no. I'm like, no, you need to wipe it. Like, this. He's like, it's fine. And I was like, I was getting frustrated. I was like, my fucking bum. And he's like, look, you don't swear in here. Yeah. And the drugs obviously got to me. He's like, look, you can't swear and stuff like that. When my mum came out, she was like, Ashara, what's happened? Yeah. But you know, like, you go in the recovery room first before you go into the proper room. So this was in recovery, and so I'm waking up and I'm thinking, who are you and why do I feel like this? Like, what did you do to me? Like, no. Yeah, so I had that, and then after I got diagnosed, they told me I got Crohn's, and I got put on steroids and Modulen, a liquid diet, for 6 weeks. So I was really upset because it was my birthday month. I was going to turn 16, and then I couldn't eat or anything. But because I'm quite stubborn, I still went out with my friends. I still went out to eat, and I spent it was like a buffet. I spent the whole time in the toilet having diarrhea like this. I had my heels on, yes, like this, and I just in the toilet. And my friends were all out enjoying themselves, eating whatever. And when I came back, I just thought, I'm not doing that again. That was just so bad. But I just really wanted to enjoy my buffet. Yeah, it was a buffet. So, you know, like, you get gassed, you feel like, yeah, there's everything there. Like, I'm gonna go for a bit of this, because it didn't stop my appetite. I like, even though I had Crohn's, I still saw this and saw that, and, you know, it was exciting and stuff like that. But yeah, that didn't
risky, because that gives the regular people a dodgy stomach sometimes.
I know.
You're probably living on the edge at 16.
Do you know what it was? I'd really dressed up. I thought I really looked nice. I thought, no, I'm definitely going out. I'm not staying in and drinking this milk. I ain't going out. Like, I wanted the pictures, innit? I'm all for pictures. I wanted it all. So yeah, so I finally like spoke to my dietitian and stuff, because I was really stubborn. I was like, what is this? I didn't want to take the medication. I didn't want to go on the diet, whatever. So finally we spoke to my dietitian. She's like, it's really important you take the medication, because I've never been on any meds. And then I'm having to take like 12 pills a day, and there were the steroids. So I said, okay, me and my mum, like, do you know when someone speaks to you and they're like really serious, especially the health professionals, sometimes they're just like, yeah, we understand. They're like, no, Ashara, you need to understand the significance of taking. You need to take. So I was like, okay, right. And my mum, I think she felt bad because she was letting me do what I want. And then she looked at me, and then she was just like, no, every morning you're taking these, let's try it. So I started trying it or whatever. I felt good. I started to feel better. But I didn't realise, I had no idea what prednisolone was. So I didn't know the side effects. I didn't know anything. Do you know what I mean? When they gave me the book, it was just a book about IBD and Crohn's. It wasn't about steroids. So I was taking the steroids, azathioprine, whatever. And then eventually I started to feel better. I remember when I started to put on weight, and like I was just out with my mum and went in the shop, and I got on the scales because we didn't have scales at home. And I saw that I had increased weight. It was only by like a couple of pounds. I still looked really skinny and stuff like that. But then I just remember the first tear of my life of happiness. I'd never cried of happiness before. And I thought, is this how people feel like when they do it? And I was just like, okay, yeah. And I was like, yeah, these drugs are working. got addicted. I was meant to take 8. I started taking 10 or 11. Yeah, I started taking loads every day. I was like, yeah. And then because of that, I got really manic. Steroids really affect my mental health. So I got manic. I was dressing up. I was going out. I was doing it all. And then boom, my face went like this. And I went crying to my mum. I was like, what's happening? I was living such a good life. And then I looked in the mirror and I was unrecognizable. I just, no, mum, what is happening to my face? There wasn't really I wasn't really on Instagram or anything. I think it was like 2010 or 11. There was only like Facebook or like an IBD community thing where you had to log online and put in a password and then go. It wasn't easily accessible. I managed to speak to one person on Facebook with Crohn's. I didn't know her, but she said, yeah, the moon phase, it happens, whatever. So my mum was like, are you going to listen to me now when we say we're weaning off? So I said, okay. I started weaning off. And then that's when like the depression kicked in. And then that's when like the symptoms would come back. So that's when I kind of got my first love-hate relationship with steroids. But after that, I think I got over that and then went on to infliximab because the drugs just weren't working anyway. So I got put on infliximab. I was a bit reluctant to take that, but when I finally took it, I kind of got in remission. It's only if something triggered me or if I was really stressed out or something like that, that I would have a really bad flare up. But looking at it now, I was kind of in remission compared to how I was when I couldn't eat, couldn't move, couldn't do anything. So I was still able to go out and, you know, I had a boyfriend at that stage as well. So that was good. And I wasn't on the milk or anything. So I was just really just getting on with it. But then that stopped working. That was short-lived as well because I still had to be on steroids with it. And it's like, I said to them, I thought you said when I start this biologic, I won't have to take any medication. They're like, it's not under control yet. Da, 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 da. So after that, I just kind of worked through it. And then I fell pregnant with my daughter in 2015. And then when I fell pregnant, I thought, okay, I don't want to take any biologics. I don't want to do anything. I just want to do this right. So, and obviously this was a big blessing for me because I just thought like, this is amazing. And, you know, if I ever get ill, then I've got my personal person to look after me as well. Because at that time, my mum had cancer and my mum's got 4 kids and I was the only one that was really looking after her. And I just thought out of 4, like, that's like 20%, is it, or something like that?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, you know, and like I thought I got died, and then, you know, like there was like, oh, you got to get tested for the cancer gene, the BRCA1 gene, and I got tested, it come back positive, and then my Crohn's was kind of in remission. So I said, yeah, I'm going for it. I don't want anything to mess up what I've got with this baby, because later on down the line, should I get ill or whatever, I'm gonna need somebody there for me, like I was there for my mum. Do you know what I mean? And you know, I wasn't trying to have 4 kids like her though.
Yeah.
But, yeah, just the one would do, innit? Get one in a cat or something. You know, like animals are really tuned in and stuff like that. But yeah, so I had my daughter, I stopped the biologics and I was fine. I was in complete remission. Like when I say remission, there was no, even if I got stressed out for some reason, there was no flare-ups, there was nothing. Like I could eat like a big fat greasy burger with all the horrible things that you should never eat if you got Crohn's. I could eat it all, I could do it all. The only thing was that I was pregnant, so I couldn't do that much of it all, but I could do it all, do you know what I mean? And then, so like, this was the most remission I've been in, when I'm completely symptom-free, Pooh's fine, everything's fine, like everything's just going well. And then as soon as I had her, I remember it was the day after I got released from the hospital. So I got released from the hospital the next day. The day after, I just started like, it was like a massive tornado flare up and nothing would control it. Like I just had this newborn, so I had to do all of that. I'd had diarrhea, my piles had got really big. Like I'd literally have to walk with my hands like this, holding open my bum cheek so I can literally just waddle around. It was so painful, even down the stairs. It was just like, oh my days, how am I meant to even look after this baby, kind of thing. Like I just needed help. I phoned the doctors. They said, okay, we'll put you on steroids. just take it like 4 hours between, because I was like, won't that get to the baby? They was like, listen, at this stage it doesn't really matter, you just got to take it. So I took the steroids. It didn't really control it. Then they tried me on Entacort. I think Entacort is a different kind of steroid. So the lady said, oh, this won't affect your mental health that bad, because obviously I've just had a baby, my hormones are all over the place. I suffered badly with mental health before, so I get highs and I get lows. So this time, like, I'm getting high, I'm getting low, I've got a baby, it's just too much. So she said, oh, try this one, Entacort, it's not that bad. You know, it's not as severe as prednisolone. So I said, okay, I'm up for it. I tried this Entacort. I got oral thrush, everything, and I had oral thrush and I had really bad temperature, and I said, I can't take this. Like, I felt like I was gonna die. I had to go to hospital because like my body just wasn't responding. I don't know if I weaned down too quick or whatever. So yeah, that was for like, it took me at least 2 years after I had my baby to get in remission. I started vedolizumab, and that kind of helped. After a while, that kind of helped. That was fine, because I tried Humira before that, and that didn't work. So I tried the vedolizumab, and that was working up until I've just literally changed of the vedolizumab, Entyvio. I've just literally changed all of it now. But it wasn't really working. Like, it started working fine, and then it's just up and down, like, and then all until my daughter was about 1.5, I still was in bad flares. Like, I couldn't raise her. I had to stay at my mum's. I was just laying on the couch. I couldn't physically get up and play with her or tell her to do anything. Or literally, if she ran off from me, I couldn't get up and run after her. So it was really depressing and really sad. But my mum said, look, we're going to go on holiday. It was in December, because in the winter, my Crohn's really flares up a lot. I don't know why. So she said, let's just go. It was like Spain, but it was really hot. We went there. And then when I come back, I felt a lot better, because I had started steroids and the Entyvio. So that combination was quite good. And when I came back, I thought, okay, I feel good. This is when I think I started making the page. I started coming out about my experience with Crohn's and stuff like that. And I started yoga. I started just doing 10 minutes a day of some stretching just to help me. And then I found that I was really in tune with it. Like, every day I did it. If I didn't do it for one day, I felt kind of off. Like, I didn't feel aligned, and I thought, this is weird. And then I would do it, and then I feel like, okay, it's like a kind of release. So then I thought, okay, yeah, this is good. I'm getting good. And I really, as a childhood memory or thing, I really wanted to be able to do the splits. So I went for it. I did some YouTube thing. It's like 30 days, you would get the splits, go for it. So I did it, yeah. It didn't take me 30 days. It took me like 3 months, but I was consistent. And because I saw progress and whatever, I kept at it. And then from then, I've just thought like, yeah, this is so good for me. I like seeing the benefits. I can see my flexibility. I can see my mental health and everything changing just because of this thing. I want to help other people, and I want to teach other people. So I went and did the course and got qualified for the course, and now I'm a yoga teacher basically. But I feel like yoga helps my Crohn's, but not if I'm in a flare up. I wouldn't say do some yoga and then, yeah, you'll be great. I feel like it's a consistency thing. I feel like you have to do it like, you know, like drugs. You need to build it up in your system over time. So I feel like it is good for stressfully, for quickly, but I know I wouldn't tell someone with Crohn's or colitis, yeah, try yoga, you'll be better. That's not what I think, because I've still had flare-ups and I still do yoga. But yeah, basically that's it. I think that's my story. And I wanted to touch lastly on adult relationships with the Crohn's and stuff, because I'm older now, I've got a child and I'm dating. It's like I kind of try to tell people as well before we get into anything. I do try to just put it out there, like, look, number one, I got a kid, and number two, I got this condition, so that I kind of like, do you know what I mean? So I'm kind of filtering it through, but I just wanted to touch on that. Like, I'm not really ashamed on that anymore, whereas before I would hide it and just pretend that I wasn't in pain when I was in pain. So yeah, that was it.
How old are you, sorry?
I'm 25.
Oh my gosh,
yeah, so
I'm older,
I've had it for
I'm
10 years
older than
now.
you.
Yeah, I know. I've been through it all now.
I love how you're like, now I'm old. Now I'm going through this thing. It's me like, wow, wow. Okay, that Ashara, that was amazing and so roller coaster-esque. I feel like there was like
on a
a
ride.
bit of a soap opera in 20 minutes. Like there's some highs, there's some lows, then there's this turn, then there's yoga. Like I think that you've obviously been through the real thick of it and like so many different experiences. And I think I really loved what you said about yoga and about how you found it as being like a daily management kind of tool rather than like a solution, because I think that's so true. I think so many people can get misguided by being like, oh, because yoga makes them feel great, and then they kind of you know tell the story and tell this narrative, and some people, like including myself, would see something and be like, oh right, so you know if
I
I
just
do
do
yoga,
that, yeah.
I'll be cured. Like, oh my god, who knew?
Look at her, yeah.
But I think you're so like, it's so nice to hear someone who's doing that and using it and be honest and be like, you know, yoga doesn't fix it, but it does make you feel better as like a daily management kind of tool. And like if you keep at it, you know, look after your body, and I guess in like on a base level, it helps you be more in tune with yourself, like full stop. So yeah, I think that was really great. Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, so honest. I think that was very relatable on many levels. Omma, we'll pass to you, my darling.
Okay, so my name's Omma and I'm 32 years old. I'm from London. And I have a sort of different experience because I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease as an adult. So I was actually in my final year of university. I think I first started, so I did a degree and master's combined. So I had just finished my third year. It was that summer, and then that's when I started to show sort of symptoms. And my symptoms were like mild in my eyes. I was going to the toilet normally. I wasn't like excessively going. My poo was normal as well. I didn't have constipation or diarrhea, but there was just blood in the toilet. So I must have, now I realize I must have just had a fissure. But at the time I didn't think anything of it. And I share a room with my sister and we have our own bathroom. So when she'd go to the bathroom after me, she'd still see like a bit of blood in the toilet. So she noticed it, and then she spoke to my mum. She kept telling me like, oh, you need to go to the doctors. I was like, no, it's fine. Like, I'm not in any pain. You know, there was no real, apart from that, there was no other symptoms. And she went and snitched on me to my mum. And my mum forced me to go to the GP. And he was really amazing. Straight away, he was like, okay, we should get this investigated. Do you have a preference of if you want a female gastroenterologist or a male? And I said, yeah, I'd like a female, because I knew that it was all like sort of digestive issues, bum issues. So I was like, yeah, I'll have a lady doctor, please. So he sent me off, and I was there. It took a few months to actually get diagnosed. And once university started in September and I was in my final year, I was doing a master's, so I was doing a lot of lab work. That's when my symptoms actually started to really develop. So I started with the fatigue, I started getting the diarrhea, the cramps, the pain, and then I couldn't make it into labs before 11 o'clock, and everyone was normally getting in around 9. Even 11 was like a real push for me. It was like 12 o'clock is when I'd actually managed to get in, but I'd stay until like 7, 8 to get my work done. But I didn't really understand what was happening. I had never heard of Crohn's before. They hadn't even mentioned Crohn's to me either. They were still investigating. So I didn't know what to tell people. And I remember this one friend, he was also like a lab partner of mine. And he would always be like having a go at me, like, you need to come in earlier. Like, it's too late to be coming in at this time. And I didn't really know what to say apart from like, I'm tired. And it was just like, oh, well, you're not sleeping properly, or maybe you're just going to sleep too late, or whatever it is. And I physically just couldn't get myself out of bed. But around March time is when like my symptoms really got worse. I was going to the toilet constantly, diarrhea, all of that stuff. And I remember I had a colonoscopy, and when I had like Googled my symptoms, one of the things that came up, well, the first thing was cancer, like colon cancer, because it was like a change in your stool and like weight loss and pain and all of this stuff. So I was like, oh my god, I'm convinced that's what I have. And when they did the colonoscopy and they were having a look, and you're sort of half sedated, so you're still awake, and I just remember asking them like, is it cancer? And they're like, no, it's not cancer, it's not cancer. And I was like, oh, okay. They took me off to the recovery room and everything, and then afterwards I was given the diagnosis of Crohn's. But then that's when my exam period had started, and my parents kept pushing me like, just take a break from uni, like take a year out, take a gap year, like you're really unwell, you know, there's no pressure, just don't put yourself through it. And I was just like, no, like I started my uni with like all of my friends from first year, and I want to graduate with everybody in the summer. Like I don't want to take time off. So I really forced myself. I remember just sleeping in the uni, like in the library on and off. I remember having my friend pick me up at like 11 o'clock every day because I just couldn't take the train home. Like the thought of it would make me cry because I'd be in so much pain. So I would just call him like, can you just come and pick me up? So he'd do that constantly for me, drop me home. I don't know how I managed that final year. It felt like a miracle. And I remember when I saw my results, I got a 2-1 and I literally screamed. And I was just like, what? I got a 2-1. There's no way. Because I think accidentally the results for your final year, they got published like a night before results were coming out. And I looked and I got all like E's and F's in my final exams. And I was just like, yeah, I failed. And then when I saw the 2-1, I screamed, as I said. And then I went to speak to my tutor because I was like, there's no way, this must be some sort of mistake. And he was like, no, well done, Omma. Like you did pass. Because my final exam, I actually got chickenpox for the first time at the age of 23. So I missed that exam. So it was literally that final year of uni was like crazy whirlwind of emotions. And he was just like, no, you weren't even borderline where we had to like discuss it and everything. You know, we just gave you a result out of 7 exams rather than 8 because you weren't able to make the last one. We just got rid of that. And, you know, you had a comfortable 2-1 and it felt like a miracle. I still remember how happy I felt that day. And I think I cried on the phone to my mum and, you know, everyone was just so pleased for me. And we went out and celebrated with like all my uni friends. Because by the time we were in masters, there was like I think maximum there was about 30 of us. So we'd all started from first year where there was like over 100 people. We whittled it down to like 30 of us and we all went out to like have food. And I think we went for shisha or something, probably not the best thing to have as a crony, but we all went to do that afterwards. And it was just so nice. That summer was great. And I had got a diagnosis, so it was nice to put a name to what I was feeling, and that was the first time I'd really heard about it. Later on, I realized that there was a guy that I went to college with, but people would always just say he's got a stomach infection. And now I found out that he actually had Crohn's as well. So it's just something that now, I don't know if it's just become more common or whether people are just being diagnosed a lot easier because of it. There's so much more awareness. Like when you speak to people, they've heard of it at least. Even if it's not direct, but they're like, oh, I know someone who's got it or a friend of a friend's got it. So I think that's really nice. It's just making it so much more easier to talk about. And I started my page, Ostomate for Life, 2 years ago, because even though I was very open with it from the beginning, and especially in an Asian community, like my parents, they were a bit hesitant in telling, because a lot of my family's in Kashmir still. So it's like a very rural village. It's hard to explain these kinds of things for them. But so they were a bit hesitant, but I was really open with everybody that I met, my friends. They all sort of knew about it in my circle and stuff, but I still felt like I didn't really accept it fully because I got a stoma very soon after being diagnosed. So that was, again, the first time I'd heard of a stoma and stuff. So I think to help push my acceptance of this illness that is for life and it's long term and it will be flares and remission constantly in life, that's why I made the page, to connect with other accounts and just see how other people are doing. And I think the main thing that I want to do with my account is just show that, yeah, it's an IBD account, but it's not just about IBD in the sense that as I said in my last post, like it doesn't define you. It's a huge part of you that has probably affected your personality and shaped you in the way that you are, your confidence. I feel like a lot of people who have Crohn's and stuff, we end up being a lot more confident in certain respects because, and so much more empathetic as well. 1 second. Guys, can you close the door? Thank you. I'm in the garden. But yeah, it's
that
just
was so polite. I'm just like, get out.
Like 1 second, shut up. Anyway.
Yeah.
My cousins have come down from Birmingham to visit, so everyone's just all chilling. So I'm like, guys, be quiet, please. But yeah, so I think it's just really positively impacted me and my personality. So I don't have any sort of bad feelings towards it, but just the struggles that you have on a daily basis, especially with having a stoma bag. And I don't think even till now I've fully accepted that this is for life, because it's so, I sort of see my life very short term. like just as it's come, I try to live in the present, because I don't like to make long-term future plans, because I just never know where I'm going to be, and because it's so unpredictable. So it's just a way of me like trying to really get to grips with it. And again, just meeting people and hearing them and seeing that they have a life beyond Crohn's, and it's not all just Crohn's. Like, I haven't been able to work for 5 years because of my illness, and it's something that I do want to get back into. But seeing people are working, holding down jobs, having like real productive hobbies and stuff, like it's just so inspiring and motivating. And, you know, hopefully, you know, even if you just connect with people and they can talk about, like, I think it'd be nice if people talked about like that work-life balance and how you've managed and the types of jobs that you're able to do. And I think with quarantine, hopefully one good thing that comes out of it is allowing people to work from home a lot more, because previously people just didn't think, like employers didn't think that it would be productive, and you know, people just take the piss. But because they've been forced in that role and they see that people are actually managing to work really well from home, and if anything they're a lot happier and a lot more productive, I hope that allows for more work from home type roles that hopefully I can then be able to get back into it. So yeah, that's my little thing. Sorry if I went a bit over. I know that
How are you now though? Are you good now? How are you now?
I'm a lot better because, like Jack, I had my Barbie butt surgery 3 years ago because my inflammation level was so high that no medication was getting it under control. And all of my illness is mainly in the perianal area. So once they removed that, that removed a lot of the sort of infection and inflammation. And even when they opened me up, they couldn't do the plastic surgery to like close it up right away because I had necrosis, which is like your tissue's actually dead inside, because it was so severely damaged that they had to literally like scoop it out. So I had this big gaping hole and they couldn't sew it back together because they said if they tried, it would just fall apart. And you can only really do that sort of plastic surgery once for it to be successful. So they kind of left me open, would pack it every day with like district nurses, allow it to heal itself. So I think it's called secondary healing, where your skin just naturally grows upwards and outwards, and then it comes together. And then I still have like issues, I still have sort of scarring, I've still got like fissures and fistulas. So initially when Loïs, you sent out the email of like you have a topic that you want to talk about, I thought that I would talk about fissures, fistulas and abscesses, because it's something that probably a lot of people with IBD have dealt with at least one of those, especially abscesses, but no one really talks about it because that's like the really gross mucusy side of
I hate saying mucus.
Yeah,
one word,
yeah,
I
know what you mean.
it's such a, it sounds so gross and you imagine it and it's just like so yeah, that's what I initially wanted to speak about, but there's just so much to talk about, you know.
There's just too much.
Ages, so yeah, hopefully there's some value in any of the things that I've mentioned.
100%, so much value. And I think you're right. I feel like these, every time I do these, I feel like they could literally go on for hours and hours and hours, because almost as you talk, you like remember different things, or you unpack certain topics that, like, I guess to us, because we deal with them, you know, like all day, every day, they're not necessarily forefront and center of like, oh yes, I must talk about fistulas today, but like you just like relive your story, and then you're like, oh yeah, and then there was that, oh yes, and then there's this. Like, we deal with so much every single day, and like I think it just like, you know, become accustomed to it.
And a complicated story. It's never just like, oh, I had a few symptoms,
Yeah.
I was on medication and I'm okay now. It was like, oh, I had to try this, it didn't work, and then I went on this and I had these side effects and this was really severe. And I think, as Jack was saying, like where you were allergic to a certain medication, when I was severely unwell, I had an antibiotic that I reacted really poorly to, and they wouldn't give it to me. But a few years later, when I was a little bit better, but I was still in hospital for 2 months because I went in for hernia surgery, and oh, this is a story for another day, but I almost died because I overdosed on morphine accidentally. And I had massive hematoma, because where they were reviving me, I think they ended up bruising my inside and I had big blood clots. And no other antibiotic would work. And they kept trying and trying. And then I was just there for 2 months. And then towards the end, they were like, can we try this one? I know you said that you're allergic to it, but, you know, we will monitor you and everything. And I was really hesitant, but I was like, okay, it's the last option. Nothing else is working. And when they tried it on me, it was the only thing that did work, and I didn't react poorly to it. So I think it's just one of them things, like when your body's really unwell, certain things just don't work at all. I remember I couldn't even eat like a cube of cheese when I was in the midst of like my flare, and I love dairy and cheese and everything. But now I can eat everything and I'm perfectly fine, and it doesn't affect me at all. So even after my first stoma surgery, and that was like a few months in between, I went from eating no dairy to being able to eat cheesy pizzas and lasagnas and everything, and it was great. It was amazing.
Long live the cheese. I'm going to quickly ask you all your thoughts on, so we had a question in from Bethany. I've had some other questions in too, but maybe I'll send them to you separately and we can answer by Instagram, because I don't want to take too much over the hour, because I understand it's a Sunday, we all have stuff to do. So I'm going to ask each of you Bethany's question, and you can offer like one top tip each if you wouldn't mind. And Bethany said, do any of you have any advice on what questions to ask the doctor when you're first diagnosed? So if you each want to offer your one tip of what you could ask.
For me, I think it's really key for people with IBD to understand their blood results, because that will tell you a lot. Like your CRP, it stands for, I think, C-reactive protein, and that's like your inflammation marker, which is usually what they really look at when you have like IBD. It's not direct, like it's not a clear indicator, but it's definitely one of the things they look at. And you should always ask them what your CRP levels are. So a normal is below 10. So anything above 10 shows that you've got inflammation. So that's definitely one thing that I would keep like track of every time you get a blood test done. And then I realized that they take you a little bit more seriously as well. If they feel like you know what you're talking about and you know the terminology, they'll give you a lot more information rather than just keeping it quite basic and simple. So that would be my tip.
That's fun. As my diagnosis was at like 5 years old, it was always my mum that was asking the questions as opposed to me. But so yeah, in terms of questions to ask after diagnosis, can't think of too many off head, but one thing I would sort of stress is to make sure that you do have confidence in the team that you're with. I've noticed, because I've moved around quite a lot, I've definitely noticed there's amazing specialists out there, but I've definitely seen like a bit of a lack of continuity of care. And that it's really important, if you don't feel confident about the team you're working with, maybe go somewhere else and get a second opinion. That's not to say get a third opinion and a fourth one and then a fifth one, but I've definitely noticed when I had my first stoma, I thought I had my IBD removed. So kind of when I was in Australia and they told me, oh yeah, you're quite severely ulcerated and you're going to have to basically go home and have surgery, that was kind of almost a new diagnosis for me, because I basically lived so healthily for so long. I basically forgot I even had IBD, to be honest. I was just taking a couple of Imodium here and there, and that was it. And then when I came back, I just found I wasn't online on social media, so I didn't know about all the alternative medications that everyone else seemed to be taking. But I definitely found it sort of assuring, just going for a second opinion. And I only ever heard the same thing. It was never really too inconsistent, but it just gave me confidence that stoma surgery is the right thing to do. And you don't need to try every single medication out there, because I was quite happy with the team I was with in London. They said it's just gone on long enough now. Your body needs a break. Even if you react well to medication, I think it just needs a break. So go back to having a stoma. But yeah, so in terms of questions to ask, if you want one and you feel like you need one, I'd recommend definitely getting a second opinion.
And lastly, I would just say I'd ask a bit more about the medications, because the medications are really great for Crohn's or whatever. Mommy. But if you're somebody like me that suffers with or has suffered with mental health, or even if you haven't, having that diagnosis might just spiral you, because that's when my mental health really started anyway. I'd say ask about the medications, ask about the side effects, and like really be careful and see what works for you. Yeah, so yeah, so that's my thing. My thing is just like, what are the side effects of these medications? Because not only like mental health, but like physically, you might be well with the Crohn's, but you might get oral thrush or I don't know, urine infections, or like I've got shingles before. I've had it all. Like you can get loads of things from these immune suppressant drugs because they suppress your immune system. So you want to kind of dive a little bit deeper. Well, I would. That's something I didn't ask, and I would have liked the heads up.
Yeah, I think those are all really, really good points. And I think I would just finish off by just saying, and it kind of just holistically ties in with what all of you have said, but just you know your own body, and so to listen to your body. So like if you feel like you're not getting anywhere with someone, ask, like what Jack said, ask for a second opinion, ask for the side effects. You know, like for example, if you are taking steroids but they don't talk to you about the mental health, but you notice that your mental health is really deteriorating, like you know that you're the only person in your body who is like knows what's normal for you, knows what's not normal for you, etc., etc. So always push forward with what you think is best for yourself, because I think so many of us in different circumstances have been turned away by doctors or told, you know, oh, it's this or it's that, and being misdiagnosed, or, you know, friends say different things. And I think ultimately it needs to just always boil down to what's right for you, because the what's right for me is totally different to every single other person in this group. And so, you know, to always understand what's best for your own health, and to like to push for it, to fight for it. It can be really hard sometimes to get listened to, I think, with any invisible illness. You know, if it's not something where people can be like, oh wow, yeah, that is green and pussy, then people are just like, oh, you know, it's probably fine, just, you know, try this, try that. So yeah, listen to your body would be my my 2 pence. Not that anyone asked, but fuck it, throw it in there. Guys, thank you so much for joining early on a Sunday. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Omma, Ashara and Jack, you've been amazing. I feel like that was a real like roller coaster of emotions for a Sunday morning. I was laughing, thought I was going to cry. Thank you to everyone that joined us and like who threw questions in, etc., etc. If there's any other questions, I've put everybody's Instagram link there, so you can go follow them, go say hi, go show them some love. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for coming today.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day. I appreciate it a lot.
See you. Bye.
Bye, guys.